Elizabeth House, Providence. If you guys are getting food, let's try to be quiet. It's like herding cats in here. It is. My name is Emily Billow, and I'm the Older Adult Program Manager at the Seattle Public Library. Today we're going to talk about fall cleaning, and we'll get going on that in just a minute. If you were here last month, we did a panel discussion. This month we're going to actually do a presentation. We have Janine Parker here today with us to do that. Age friendly, do you guys have any updates before we get going? All right. We do have cake that has just recently appeared, so help yourself to some of the cake maybe after the presentation is done. And then at the end we do have a resource table, so please go and grab that for when we're done. And with that, I'm going to read off a short bio for our presenter today. So, Janine Pastor. All right, everyone. Okay. Janine Pastor is the founder of Aria Environmental, a locally based pest management company that helps people live safely, healthily, and comfortably in their homes and communities. Drawing on years of experience in integrated pest management and environmental health, Janine leads a team focused on prevention, education, and practical solutions using evidence-based methods to eliminate pests, reduce exposure to chemicals, and correct the conditions that follow infestations to persist. Her down-to-earth approach connects technical expertise with compassion and works directly with residents and caregivers and property management to identify root causes, improve sanitation and inclusive practices, empower people with everyday habits that reduce pests in housing. Through Aria Environmental, she champions the sustainable pest management as both a public health service and a pathway to independent, dignified living for all ages. All right, everyone, that was a short intro, but I will have her take it away, and we will have some time for Q&A afterwards, so we'll save it till the end. And with that, let's welcome our presenter.
Thank you very much for that lovely intro. I'm Janine, and I really appreciate you all coming, and I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about how to help improve peace and calm in your living environment by reducing clutter. And clutter primarily is anything that doesn't make you feel peaceful and good and is useful to your life currently. So a lot of confusion can happen with what to keep and what to let go of. We accumulate a lot over our life, and the more we see things and the more we have things in our space, the more attached we become to them, even if they are not exactly useful to us in this point of our life anymore. So. Any of you guys have issues with clutter in your home that you're concerned with, particularly? It will really, really help to ease your mind and calm you if you can just breathe and start one step at a time with it. And it says spring cleaning on my slide here, but you're really getting a jump on it because it's just fall. So the reason being is we get to do one thing at a time very slowly and try not to bite off more than you can chew with it. And stuff, as we know, can be very, very precious and very also in our way. And sorry, ready for the next slide for you. Thank you. So in our homes, when we do have clutter, it does make our homes less safe and more pest prone. So there's a lot that can happen with trips and falls, especially if you're getting up in the night to use the restroom, get a drink of water, and there are things in your path that can make it very hazardous to trip and fall. And so the more we can clear our spaces, the easier and safer we can navigate through our homes, especially in evening times or at night when it's harder to navigate even without clear spaces. I'm ready for the next slide. So, and right now we're in a space where we've got multi-unit housing. So when you're in multi-unit housing, it makes it that much more important for us to be mindful of how our own spaces affect the spaces of others that we live with in community. And not from a space of pointing fingers at this person or that person, but as supporting each other through it. Because in the situation where there does become a pest infestation in any unit, it can very easily spread to another unit, and and it's not helpful to point a finger, but it is helpful for us all to be mindful of how we're affecting everybody else with how we manage our things. And with that being said, it is really important when we do bring anything new into our home that we are careful to inspect it for any possible pest bring-in, because especially if you have packaging. I did bring a couple examples of things that can look very safe and not look problematic, but can be very problematic. So if I were to order a package online and it comes to me, you would assume it's safe and that there isn't anything. But it's gone through trucks, it's gone through different states, it's been handled a lot, it's sat in warehouses. And the thing about cardboard is there's all these folds in it, and there's also all these little corrugations. And in these corrugations, they are prime areas where bugs can go and house themselves and lay eggs. And then unbeknownst to you, you get your lovely package, you take the item out, set this down, and lo and behold, it starts to infest your home. And then it will share with others. So I highly encourage you, as soon as any packages come into your home, take your precious item out and discard appropriately. Either recycle it or put it in the trash container so that you don't have cardboard. Another highly hazardous item that you would not necessarily think would be hazardous are our friends, our paper bags. So paper bags also, lots of nooks and crannies in them, both outside the bag and inside the bag. And you can have an issue with you got a bag from the grocery store and it didn't have anything in it, but you might have sat it down next to you on the bus and something crawls in it. So the same thing would be true for this. Try to minimize any sort of paper bags and plastic bags too, but paper is probably a little bit more conducive. But either one is important to minimize in your home. And areas we want to mainly focus on is kitchens and bathrooms are really your high areas for accumulating conducive conditions for pests. So I'm talking to you guys about clutter in general, but my current expertise and area of work is in pests and housing and how that combination of conducive conditions can lead to people having problems. So it's very important to be extra mindful of your kitchens and your bathrooms with regards to clutter, because clutter allows for hiding areas in general. Like we were talking about with the boxes and the bags, that's the same thing for things sitting on your counter where bugs can easily hide in piles of things that are on the counter or on the floor. And then bedrooms and bathrooms, bedrooms are going to be more of a concern for if you accidentally bring home a bed bug. And again, I really encourage you all not to feel ashamed if you do find a bug in your home, and to report it right away, because that is the best way for it to be solved as quickly as possible for you. And bed bugs can come from anywhere to anyone. They are not discriminatory. The reason why we sometimes associate them more with dirty conditions is because they have a higher ability to hide the more things there are, and the less often somebody cleans, because they are bugs that can be cleaned away by vacuuming and wiping up. They do go back and hide in crevices in your mattress folds, or in the box spring, or in the frames, but over time they can be cleaned with vacuuming and stuff. But if it gets too out of hand, then it does have to take professional help. So always best to report right away if you have any concern at all that you might have an issue. So back to your kitchen priorities. Roaches will be attracted by any amount of small food left out at all. Like, if they really don't take too much to subsist and become more of a problem. So really making sure you wipe down your counter surfaces, removing any crumbs, sealing any food that you leave out, and of course if there's any food that needs refrigeration or being put in the freezer, that it isn't left out. And that's also for fruit flies and any other opportunistic pests, pantry pests as well, will gravitate towards open containers. And then with fruit flies, one really good thing you can do to prevent that is always give your fruit a slight vinegar water bath when you bring it in. So you're not going to see the eggs on the fruit or see the flies on the fruit when you bring it from the grocery store, but you'll bring it in, and if you don't wash it, most often there will be some eggs on it that will hatch in your home. So it's not just rotting fruit that causes a problem. It also can be fresh fruit that doesn't have anything, but it just came with eggs that then hatch. So prevention is key with just doing a vinegar water bath for any fruit before leaving it. It doesn't have to be that long, just maybe a few minutes, and then rub it under fresh water and then dry it well. So you don't want to leave moisture on your counter either. So that's also very important. So, and then checking expiration on any food. And grain products are also an issue for expiration because they can really cause a lot of pantry pest issues with moths that you don't want. So. And then I think we started to touch on this, but it's to reduce overwhelm when you are working on decluttering. Just pick one small area at a time that you want to work on, and only do a little bit at a time. Just a few things. 3 to 5 items that you decide you don't need in your space anymore, and then you can let those go. And then stop there so you don't get overwhelmed, and that way emotionally you'll feel more invigorated for it in the future, because it will build a sense of accomplishment in an easy way. And then every day you just do a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, and it builds your momentum, and then over time you've gotten yourself through it. The other thing too with that is pick a buddy, right? Find somebody that also is struggling, and you guys can help each other. That's one of the beautiful things about being in community, is we can help each other get through hard things. And so we can team up, and we can, just like have lunch together at one person's space and do a little tidying together, and then the next day do it at the other person's, or tea, or or just being together, helping each other out. So that's always helpful. And then we did touch on making sure to keep floor spaces clear. So always keeping floor spaces clear. There is a huge hazard, especially as we get older, for trip and falls, and they are so much more dramatically detrimental to us as we get older as well. So really being conscious to keep paths clear in our homes. And if you need help with that, please reach out to get help if you need things moved, and ensure that that can be arranged to get you support with that. And when we're talking back about with multi-unit housing, the other thing that is a risk is the spread through walls and plumbing, laundry, outlets, and in furniture. And we did talk about the boxes already, but also that stays true for furniture that is brought in from, if you're somebody donates something to you, or you pick it up at Goodwill, or even sometimes if you purchase something used just from a friend, just in making sure that it's looked at very clearly to make sure it doesn't have any pest infestation. And a lot of times, I know we do that with the buildings we service, but a lot of times the pest professionals that handle the buildings are willing to look at incoming furniture and other items just to make sure people feel safe, that it doesn't have anything that's being brought in. Because it doesn't mean that everything's going to. A lot of things won't, but you just want to be more cautious and be safer with what you bring in. Also, when we're talking about conducive conditions, we do have to consider moisture. So if you have any leaks, please report them right away, because those will create conducive conditions for pests as well. Pests, particularly roaches, love moist spaces. And so if you have even a small leak under your sink, that will start to erode that under sink area and make it much more conducive for pests to establish. And not only that, but then you have the risk for mold and mildew. And that can be the same thing even in condensation on windows. So if you have heavy drapes over your windows and it doesn't get much ventilation in that space, making sure to check that regularly so that you are sure it's not building up moisture where you can grow mold and mildew. I personally actually had a very bad instance of mold illness that came from, I put out a makeshift blackout shade in front of my window temporarily until I got a real one, which was just a black plastic bag I taped up over my window in my bedroom so that it could be dark at night. But I kept waking up every morning feeling horrible, tired, headache, and I'd go to sleep exhausted and I'd wake up more exhausted, and kept going to the doctor and couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And it turned out, she was like, well, you're waking up feeling worse in the morning. It's got to be something in your sleeping environment. When you get out of your house, you're feeling better. And check everywhere. And I took that down, and it was just all moldy because I lived in the forest, and there's, this wasn't a double pane window house, and the moisture and condensation was coming in and just getting trapped there. So there's some hidden things that you wouldn't think that can surprise. So just being aware and looking for that, and also watching how you're feeling to make sure, because mold and mildew is also something you don't want to mess with. That can also come from back to clutter. If you have a pile of something in a corner, for instance, like even a pile of laundry in a corner that sits for too long, can accumulate mold and mildew from that accumulated moisture, and also can be attractive to any pest population as well, because if you have dirty laundry, it's obviously going to have a little people smell on it, and they love that. So just and that brings it to if anybody needs support with help with laundry, I do know now there's a lot more support with chore workers and care workers available to apply for additional help if you need help with things like that. So, and then overfilled closet areas, that goes to in general, when your house is feeling too full, it affects you emotionally and physically, right? So as we let go of things that no longer serve us, that allows both physical and emotional space, and it allows for more peace. So even though it's hard to discipline, to go through things to begin with, till we get into a rhythm and a habit of doing it, the more we do it, the more clear our space will be, the more peace we will have. And then it just builds its momentum from there. So when we're talking back on community, I do want to emphasize that working together is always the best way to accomplish any goal, because the more everyone is in alignment with supporting each other, the better outcomes we have. So a lot of times, if there is an issue with a pest breakout that seems to be stemming from one person's space, there can be a lot of finger pointing and, well, now I'm going to get pests because that person has them, or this person has them and they're doing this wrong thing. But if we can, instead of pointing fingers at each other, think, how can we support that person? Because that person there must be some missing piece for them that is causing them to have a hard time with that condition. And so if we all have a little bit more empathy for each other and spend effort supporting each other, it all feeds back, and it's a circle that does better for everyone. And this goes to aging well, right? So as we age, it is more and more important that we have peace of mind and ability to move freely in our spaces unencumbered, because motion and mobility becomes more and more important as we age. So part of being healthy is really being able to have clear spaces physically that then lead to clear spaces mentally, and it helps our brains function better when we have more peace in our external environments. And so that is one of the biggest benefits we can have by going through our stuff and letting go of what no longer serves us, and being able to have more space in our lives for the people in our lives to spend the time with them that is so vital. So, and back to what we were talking about before, which is making sure you report any leaks. Any problems that you're having with storing food properly, if your refrigerator isn't working properly, if it's not keeping your food at the proper temperature, you could have food spoiling a lot sooner, and that can definitely obviously be a health hazard if you're ingesting food that isn't at a healthy, safe temperature. Same thing with your freezer. And that's something also that can happen not just because the freezer and the refrigerator are broken, but also from an overfilled refrigerator or freezer. Because the air in the refrigerator has to have the ability to circulate and rotate in order to keep the food at the proper temperature. So that's something that a lot of people don't know about refrigeration, is they think, well, if it fits and I can shut the door, that's going to be good. But even if you can fit it all in and you can shut the door, it's not meant to have so much stuff in it that it can't circulate. So it's going to get irregular temperature spots and not be able to keep your food at safe temperatures. And then worse yet, if it becomes so full that that the seal is not adequate, then you're going to get where you'll get mold and mildew and really have a huge problem with food safety temperatures. So that's also why even in our refrigerators and freezers, we need to be mindful of decluttering those spaces as well, and making sure that if something is no longer good or what we would be using, we can let it go, so that we can have room for it to be safe. And that is it for me, but I would be happy to take any questions that you guys have. Any concerns with anybody's situation that they'd like help with?
Anyone have any concerns or questions? Yeah, what's your question?
I've gotten shorter as I've gotten older. And I'm finding that the kitchen in my apartment has shelves that are several that are out of reach.
Okay.
And I'd like to know if you have any suggestions, because the medical people say, good, a lot of stuff still. And if I don't do that, I don't see the facility.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to repeat the question really quickly. So we had an audience question. The question was, as she's getting older, she feels like she can't reach up to the top cupboards anymore. And the doctors are saying, don't step on his stepping stool, don't get on his ladder. So what are some other options maybe for her?
Well, it's not as aesthetic of an option, but having small, clear bins that can sit on your countertop, where you can keep things in bins where they're easily accessible to you and still able to be closed, is one option, so that it's closer at hand. The other thing is to really think of what are things that you use most and the things that you use least, and the things that you really use very rarely, but you still do want those things, and you wouldn't want them sitting on your counter because they're not things you use often. You could have a arrangement with staff to come and help you get that down when you do need it, whether it's seasonal or on a rare occasion. And so you'd still be able to use that space in a safe way, just when you strategically rearrange things so that those aren't things you're using on a regular daily basis. Yeah, does that help?
Do we have a question over here? What's the question?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, sure, yeah. And you all are welcome to reach out to me either by phone or call or text or email if you do have any questions or concerns that you think of that you would like support with.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
My question is that behind the stove, the fridge,
Yeah.
like that, sometimes they need to be pulled out.
Yeah.
You get a lot of dust,
Yeah.
roaches, and all kinds of insects.
Yeah.
Up under the motors and things.
Absolutely.
So is there any kind of way, I mean, I can ask, but some people, they can do it.
Yeah.
Like, those things, they do come in, they get in.
Yeah.
Every now and then.
Sure. Well, I would say
So let's come back. Restate the question, and then we'll answer it. Oh, sure. Yeah, I didn't hear. I didn't do it.
Oh, got it. So he was asking about behind the stove and the refrigerator, how it does collect dust behind the stove and the refrigerator, and also occasional invaders, cockroaches particularly accumulating back there. There's a lot of food bits that will drop and get stuck behind the stove and under the refrigerator. So he was saying he can do that himself as far as pulling out the refrigerator and stove, but how would somebody handle it if they weren't able to do that themselves? And I would say if you're in a situation where you're in managed housing, then I would bring that to the attention of your management, that is there a way to make sure somebody comes and helps with that chore aspect on a regular basis so that it doesn't get bad back in those areas? If you have a chore worker as well, that's something that the chore worker can help with. And then of course, if you have a pest control company for the building, that is something they usually do include is because usually you will have what is known as a monitor that will be able to track what, if any, pests are in certain areas in your home. And they're usually put behind or under refrigerators, ovens or stoves, in cabinets, particularly under sink cabinets. And they come, and when they come to do the service, they're checking on those monitors and rebating for any pests. And so they usually do pull those things out. Now it depends on the company that you have whether or not they will be vacuuming up underneath those spaces, but that's something I would definitely ask about, and you can always ask to have it done. And then if you are in a non-managed housing situation, then and you have mobility issues, I would definitely suggest that you put it into a managed care request from a care worker, because if you're not able to do those things, it is important that you have help to do those things. So that's what I would say for that. Yeah, absolutely.
And we have another question over here at this table, and the question was, this summer a tree got a little bit bigger outside of their window, and then they found ants in their house during the summer. How do you get rid of the ants, and could the ants have come from the tree?
Oh yes, the ants could definitely have come from the tree. You always want to keep any foliage a safe distance from the house. You never want any foliage to be touching the house directly. So I would say the beginning start is having a landscaper trim back the foliage if it's not something that you can do yourself or have a loved one that can help you with. And then if you have a persistent ant issue, then have a professional come and help you with that. I really recommend not trying to self-treat for things like that. You can cause further what's called splitting, where a colony, particularly with ants, will split and go all kinds of weird places when you're trying to self-treat, as well as it's usually much less safe when you're doing treatment yourself than when you have a professional come in. When you have a professional come in, they have appropriate protective gear. You are out of the space during drying times. They apply it very carefully into cracks and crevices, and so it makes it a lot safer and more effective. But what you can do for ants is what we've talked about already with regard to making sure there aren't any crumbs around. The counters are very clean, because again, they're going to be coming in for food, but also for moisture. So, you know, a dripping faucet, anything like that will also be attractive to them. So making sure things are dry and clean.
Thank you. We have another question? Yes.
Yes. What about house plants? Do they bring any kind of?
Yeah, houseplants usually do bring with them some moisture gnats and things like that. And I would say one thing to really help with that is just little sticky insect monitors that you can put near the plant, and then also not having them be too moist, right? Making sure you're not overwatering and causing the plant to have too much moisture, causing you to have more issues with fungus gnats. So the other thing you can do if you're having a lot of issues with little gnats is, we have them professionally, but you can get them other places too, is just little tiny cordless vacuums, because gnats are pretty easy to vacuum out of the air. You just take the vacuum and you hover above it slowly, and then it will just suck it up. So, and then once you get rid of them, unless you leave a window open, you should be able to get rid of them. If you don't have a sticky trap, if you don't have like a pest control person that can leave one for you, you can also roll a piece of tape inside out and put it on the side of the pot so that there's some sticky edge. So you like stick one side of it onto your pot, and then the other side is going to stick out. So just like a rolled ribbon of it, and then you can stick them around your pot. Yeah, no, you're good.
The question was about if houseplants could potentially bring
Oh,
in
I'm sorry.
bugs.
It's okay. Ask it. Sorry.
It's kind of both for the online audience, the recording, and then also the interpreters. Logistically it's challenging.
Sure, I get it. Absolutely.
The next question we have is from the audience online, and the
Okay.
question is there any like specific life events that might maybe is there any specific like events that might trigger someone to start hoarding or be more disorganized, and like what can you do to help them if that happens? Like
Yeah.
So
So a lot of times, I would say probably the majority of times that people are triggered to have deeper hoarding behaviors where they're burying themselves with stuff is when they have emotionally traumatic events in life that cause them to feel a need for safety. And like we were talking about earlier, with when the more you have something around you, the more familiar it is, the safer you feel with that around you. And so if you have somehow lost safety, that happens a lot with people that have issues where they are temporary or long-term without safe housing. And oh geez, I'm sorry. And so that can cause them to try to gather more things as a form of protection. And I would say the best sort of healing for that is, again, goes back to community support, right? Because the more connection people have with people in their life, the less they will need to protect themselves with things in their life. And so if you know somebody who is having issues surrounding themselves with stuff, the best thing that you can do is help be more present with them emotionally and support them and help them create little micro habits of letting go of things that no longer serve them. But also it's important as much as possible, unless it's a true safety hazard where for everyone's safety there has to be a large clear out. But outside of that, moving slower, where people have time to emotionally settle, to gradually less and less stuff, is important for long-term maintenance and healing from that.
thank you for that. Any other questions in the audience? Anyone else has anything pressing that they would like to add or comment? Anyone? I guess I have one more question. This is just selfish. Okay, so at the end of the summer, I get all the ripe fruit from the farmer's market and, you know, my garden and things, and then all of a sudden I have the little fruit flies everywhere.
Yeah.
What do I do with those? How do I get rid of them? They feel like in the end of like August, my house is full of them.
Yeah, well, I would say going back to when you bring them in, doing the vinegar water bath. Anytime you're going to bring any fruit into your house, and if it's something that you already have a basket like full of fruits that has active bugs around it, I would do that process outside before you bring it in. So have a dunk bucket outside that you would put all of your fruit in that has a vinegar water bath, and then dunk it in there so that you're getting any life stages taken care of. Then bring it in, rinse it off, dry it well so you're not having conducive moisture. And there you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
I hope you all learned something. Yeah, I have another question.
Yes.
How much vinegar goes into the water?
I think it's 3 to 1, like 1 part vinegar, 3 parts water. You might want to double check on that. I just do it by feel. I don't measure it.
I'm sure a little extra vinegar isn't going to hurt anyone. Once you wipe it off, right?
You rinse it off. It just and the vinegar you get from the store isn't very strong anyway. So, but I think it's a 3 to 1. It might be a 3 parts water, 5 parts water, 1 part vinegar. It doesn't really matter too much. It just, you want something on there to rinse it off, and then you're rinsing it off again under water as well and drying it. So you're doing a lot of manual work with it. Yes?
With regard to food consumption, with regard to food consumption and storage,
Yes.
how do you minimize and how do you optimize the system? How do you preserve the foods?
So the question is, thinking about like food preservation and like keeping food longer, what is a good way to help preserve the foods that we eat?
Yeah.
I would say if you find out what the proper storage is for that food and make sure it enters that as soon as possible, and also that you're not putting something in storage that shouldn't. So for instance, potatoes are not good to put in the refrigerator. You can actually create a substance in the potato that is not good for your body by putting it in the refrigerator, particularly for a long period of time. It gets, if you ever have a potato that has a green hue on it, you do not want to eat it. If it is just slightly, you can peel it so that there's no green, but you don't want to eat any green on the potato. It will make you feel sick.
And it's not good if it starts
Are
sprouting
you,
also.
Yeah.
in relation with that, which kind of foods will be preserved in the freezer?
Yeah, that's a great question. The question is like, what types of fruits do we want to put in the refrigerator?
I would put any like if you have apples, they're gonna stay better in the refrigerator. Any kind of pit fruit. So if you've got peaches, nectarines, grapes, strawberries, any kind of berries, you're going to want to either don't wash the berries before putting them into the refrigerator, or you can do a vinegar bath with them like we talked about, but just make sure they're very dry before putting them into the refrigerator. And usually putting a little paper towel underneath them that you change out every day, so that as the moisture from washing them dissipates, you're removing it so you don't cause the fruit to spoil fast. The vinegar really does help with berries to last longer, but you do really have to manage that moisture by putting a paper towel.
And Stephanie, I'm almost wondering if we've been getting a lot of food, like food storage questions. We could always have Tilth Alliance come in and do a presentation on like how to store food properly.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, I think that you guys are asking a lot of great questions around that. That could be something that we bring in as a different topic. Because I know it's not your entire expertise.
No.
But you are answering them well, so that's great.
I'm doing my best about it. But
Yeah,
I mean, it does
Good questions,
tie,
good
it does
questions.
tie in.
Yeah.
But yeah, somebody could probably go into more depth.
Yeah, we have some
on
gardeners
food.
who are really good at explaining how all the food, even dry food and wet food and meats and stuff like that. So, any other one more question before we tie it up? Oh, I do see cake over there. So maybe with that, we have some cake. Please feel free to have some. I just want to thank Stephanie and Providence Elizabeth House. Thank you all so much. Thank you for hosting us, and everyone, we'll be around.
We sing happy birthday to Meg.
Oh yeah. All right, it's our coworker Meg's birthday, and so we're gonna sing happy birthday.